You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast, here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Chrissie, and joining me is my co-host, Thad. Thad, how are you doing today?
I'm alright, just dealing with the memories of people I've lost, but other than that, pretty good.
Okay, good to know. All right. Also joined with us today is Christos Giannaris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. All right, well, before we jump into our topic for the day, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons who make our show possible, particularly our associate producers. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5 or more, you can join our Meetings of the Hive Mind on the second Saturday of each month. Watch your Patreon messages for details. All right, so we just have a little bit of news here. The big piece of news, Destination London canceled.
Yeah.
But when they announced that it was canceled, they didn't really announce that it was canceled. People had to ask them, do you mean it's canceled? Which I thought was absolutely hilarious and also bad.
Yeah, because the same company that does Destination Star Trek London also does Destination Star Trek Dortmund, Germany. And their announcement was just, we have decided to do only one convention. They canceled the one in London. Keep in mind that we're only 4 months away from the one in London when it was supposed to happen. They didn't give people refunds. They gave people tickets to London Film and Comic-Con this July. So there's been a bit of a kerfuffle about this. My suspicion, and admittedly, there is no official announcement, nor would there be one about this sort of thing. But my suspicion is that the company is not able to afford the two conventions and is consolidating to one.
You know, there's a lot of different angles you could take on that. I mean, they're saying COVID concerns, but they're giving tickets to other events. Could it be that they're having a hard time securing the actor talent to show up at their event? Traveling internationally is not the easiest thing right now.
They had those same talent going to be at Dortmund a couple weeks ahead before, so it would be really hard to get people to do two different European conventions spread apart like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just, feel bad for our European friends who are not going to have a convention.
Absolutely. It's been a hard year for British Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
They have not had Strange New Worlds or Prodigy. They had Discovery pulled out from under them at the last minute and then stuck on a service where they had to watch it live. And now they're losing their convention. This is not a good time to be a UK Star Trek fan, apparently.
We'll throw them a bone. I think they get Paramount Plus in 2 or 3 weeks.
They do finally get Paramount Plus next month, just in time to watch the last couple episodes of Strange New Worlds. From what I've seen of Destination Star Trek in the UK before, it's been very well attended and has been quite successful. So it seems very odd that they would not be able to do this unless they simply are unable to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it seems like the convention formerly known as STLV in Las Vegas is set up to be the biggest of the year, with over 101 guests already confirmed. It's going to be huge.
Wow.
It is, but look at that guest list, because easily a third of them are not Star Trek actors.
I got you, but you got a ton of A-listers in there.
Oh, for sure. I'm just saying that when it was STOV, they always advertised the 100 guests, and back then it was 100 actors. Now they have a whole bunch of Twitter personalities and other people listed as official guests, which is fine. I'm just saying it's not quite what it used to be.
I like how you say that. Twitter personalities as guests.
I got you. But on the other hand, I think they have the entire TNG cast, like minus Patrick Stewart. So,
yeah.
I mean, and most of Discovery and a lot of Strange New World, they've got the actors.
Oh, yeah. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to make it this year, but I think the people who go will have a great time. Even though it's not an official convention, I think the Creation Vegas Star Trek convention is here to stay, just because Creation is a well-established company. They have good relationships with a lot of these actors, and I don't think that convention's going anywhere. I think in, 5 years, it'll still be going strong, even if it's not official.
I agree with that.
Definitely. I mean, Creation's the original, so even if they aren't official, there's still a lot of clout.
Back when I was in high school and TNG was still on, I used to go to those weekend Creation ones, and they were just one guest, and it's like, or it's Brent Spiner, or it's Jonathan Frakes, or Michael Dorn, and so yes, you're right, it's the original.
Listeners, if you were planning on going to Destination London, sorry, that really sucks. I would start demanding a refund, even if you had planned on going to the other thing they gave you tickets to, because that's complete BS. Well, the other piece of news is that it looks like we're going to have 4K releases of The Final Frontier and The Undiscovered Country, and then the motion picture director's cut Blu-ray. I think we already knew that was coming.
We already knew that was coming. I don't think we have a date for that, but we did already know it was coming this fall. But yes, this is breaking news as of the recording of this podcast. It looks like there are European retail listings for Star Trek 5 and 6 in 4K, as well as motion picture director's cut in 4K, releasing on September 13th, 20th, and 27th, which is interesting. I'm wondering how the US release is going to be handled. We know that the first 4 were released as a box set last fall, around that same time in September. So it'd be interesting if they release 5 and 6 separately, or if they're in a box set together. My original thought was that what we would probably get was a box set of 5, 6, and Generations, and then a later box set of First Contact through Nemesis. But with this release, it may be that they'll just bundle 5 and 6 together, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I think we may get a 5 and 6 bundle. It would seem strange to release 5 and 6 by themselves when they release the first 4 together. Also, if they release 5 and 6 by themselves, they're going to sell a lot more of 6.
Poor 5.
Yeah.
My guess is that 5. It will be a box set. Whether or not it will include Generations looks like probably not, and it may just be 5 and 6 together. Hopefully not for the same price as the set with 4 last year.
Do you think we'll get both versions of Star Trek 6?
I really hope so. The extended version of 6 doesn't have separate CG shots that they have to worry about. Those are all film shots. It shouldn't be an issue like that. So I really hope we will get both the extended and theatrical cut, because I personally think the extended cut is a little better. I think when you learn that the assassin was actually Colonel West and not a Klingon, it just really adds to the whole intrigue and conspiracy.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to have the extended version, because it's 5 more minutes, something like that. It's not a lot.
I mean, we need to see those, Colonel West with those flip charts,
Frankly, sir, we can clean their chronometers. I love 6. It's my favorite Star Trek movie. So I am very much looking forward to this 4K release.
I think it's mine as well. That's kind of funny.
Well, it is the best one. All right. Well, we are not here to talk about the original series movies today. We are here to talk about Strange New Worlds, the original series. So this week we have Memento Mori, Thing to Remember. What are your initial thoughts on this episode, Christos?
I loved it. I felt like, I'm going to preface it. I've heard lots of people who have had the honor of having screeners and seeing all 5 first episodes kind of keep on saying, wait for episode 4, wait for episode 4. So I kind of came in with huge expectations, but I wasn't disappointed. It was very much action-packed submarine warfare type of episode. I think it pushes the limits on canon a little bit, which I know has gotten some people all ruffled up. But I enjoyed it. I felt it was a good mix of action and a lot of character development at the same time for several of the main stars. So really enjoyed it from that perspective.
All right. Thad, your thoughts?
I would tend to agree with this. I loved this episode. I think I liked episode 3 slightly more, just because episode 3 was really good. But I very much enjoyed watching this episode. I think it was reminiscent of a lot of some of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, particularly the DS9 Season 4 episode Starship Down, which is one of my favorites. And I enjoyed this from start to finish. I liked the aspect of never really seeing the enemy, which is very reminiscent of Balance of Terror. I like how everybody worked together and came up with crazy ideas in the best Star Trek tradition. So yeah, I think this was a pretty great episode. Strange New Worlds continues to hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I'm seeing every week people saying, no, this is the best one yet. No, this is the best one yet. And I'm like, they're all good. I don't know if it's the best one yet, but they're all good. And this one definitely does pick up a lot of vibes from other stories in Trek. And we will get into that as we go on here. All right. So we start with a log from La'an about Federation Remembrance Day. And while probably completely unplanned good timing with landing on Memorial Day weekend in the United States. Pretty sure nobody planned that, but...
I mean, they might have planned it.
Maybe it wasn't planned to begin with, but when they kind of had an idea of when these episodes might drop, they may have adjusted a week or two to make that happen. I felt like it was like really in your face kind of like, so it kind of was, and I didn't have a problem with it. I think it was great. I just, I thought maybe there had to be a little bit of manipulation of the schedule, to make that work out.
Is this why we got a double up with that last episode of Picard, maybe?
It very well may be. Yeah, that would make sense. It's the grand tradition of Star Trek. If we go all the way back to Season 2 of TOS, they held off on releasing Cat's Paw until Halloween. Thankfully, this was better than Cat's Paw.
Yes. Cat's Paw has its moments, though. All right, so I thought that was a really cool tradition that they have there. I liked all the medals. Listeners, I think TrekCore has a nice picture of all the medals for all the different ships. So, what did you guys think about the idea of each individual having some kind of remembrance medal? How did that make you feel? Did you think that that's, like, is that something you would want to do in that situation?
I could see if it was an option and you voluntarily did that. I mean, first off, maybe it's because it's the flagship, you're not going to have this problem. But, what if this is your first ship and you haven't served on another ship yet? That was my first thought. But then, of course, people want someone's going to have a first ship, or, if it's a Federation, if it's a day across the Federation. So I thought it was a little weird. I think it was more deliberate in order to tie it to the story for La'an and give us a little bit of throwbacks to Discovery, because that's not the only throwback to Discovery we see in this episode. So I think that's where that plot point came from. But so it was a little weird.
Yeah, I kind of had that thought too of what if you haven't been on a ship that anybody was lost? What if you're just lucky and you haven't dealt with this yet in your career or your life? Because we do see, like, La'an's is not a career one, it's a life one. So
it feels a bit like forced patriotism, which is something I generally always hate. So I think it should be a voluntary thing. As far as whether people know someone, because Uhura was also wearing one, I believe. So I think the idea is that they would all probably know someone, like even if it was someone they went to the academy with who was lost on another ship, like they might wear that ship's metal. Like, I don't think these are all for ships that got destroyed. I think some of them are, like,
No.
if, a person they knew on that ship died. So, but at the same time, I don't like this whole concept of, like, oh, everyone has to wear these. That hits me the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, and you even see Una kind of get her on the bridge in the beginning, like kind of a little bit of a peer pressure, bullying type of how that can be looked at, as, hey, why aren't you wearing yours? Well, maybe I don't want to wear one, but it turns into a scene,
It reminds me a lot of the days after 9/11, when some people put up those, United We Stand posters and the flags, and some people didn't, and the people who did looked askance at the people who didn't, and that sort of thing.
And how dare you not wear a flag pin to any of the political activities that have happened since.
Yep.
But particularly that year. It did not bother me at all about the pins until Una got into it with La'an.
Yeah.
At which point, and I understand her saying, like, oh, hey, you're not wearing your pin, and then just leave it at that. Fine. Okay, little weird, but fine. But then just getting into it, and it ending with La'an basically saying, look, I don't need counseling, go away.
Yeah.
And you can see there's background issues there. You can see this as a discussion they have had before, maybe not in this context. And so that, I think, is interesting. But the idea of, like, why aren't you wearing your pin? No.
Yeah.
I did uniforms for 13 years at Catholic school. I don't,
Yeah. I'd almost give this little thing, a minor, like, thumbs down for a plot point, because it's really just to push, what happened to her, and start laying that background a little bit, which is going to be relevantly in our face when they start to get in it with the Gorn. So how convenient that we have this little plot point at the beginning with pins to kind of start laying that, and then here it is. So
it's like a good thing this didn't happen over Federation Labor Day or something instead. The other end of summer. So they're headed to this colony. The colony is requesting aid. I was a little bit blurry on this, and I think it's just because I had other stuff going on both of the times that I watched it at the beginning, and so it was like, okay, so they're going to this colony. I thought, until they started bringing people on board, that ship with the colonists was actually a hologram or just some kind of trap in and of itself.
I was the exact same way. I was like, okay, this is a red flag, and I'm waiting for it to be a trap, and although it was a trap, it was legitimate colonists that were seeking help. It was, but I really thought that ship was, like you said, a hologram or something to get in close and open fire.
I thought so too.
Where I think I got confused was when they said that something at the end when Una's like, oh, the hologram was all a trap, or maybe it was La'an. They must have been referring to the original communication, I guess.
No, I think what was a trap was altogether the setup that some of the colonists were allowed to escape instead of all being taken.
Oh.
And they were allowed to be on that ship because the Gorn knew it would not be able to be transported, and the Enterprise or whatever rescuing ship would be in a vulnerable position to try to help those people. That was the trap.
Yeah, I don't think the people on the ship knew they were a trap. I think they honestly thought they had managed to get away somehow.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, the Gorn were definitely using them as bait.
So let's talk about the Gorn. And people have been discussing some canon issues with the Gorn. I didn't see anything here that really bothered me canon-wise, but I don't have Arena memorized either, so...
Yeah.
We don't know much about the Gorn in Arena, but I can't, at least off the top of my head, think of any specific line of dialogue that says we have never heard of the Gorn or don't know that the Gorn exist.
No.
Yeah, the only mention I heard was, there's about, 30 seconds in Arena between the time that the Gorn come up and Kirk leaves the bridge that Spock could have said something, having been on this mission, but he doesn't. But, with canon, this probably needs to be said. Some people just need to get over it. If we get into a little bit of a gray area here and there, on a show that's been around for 56 years, people are just going to have to lighten up a little bit and, take a deep breath and roll with it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You hurt your ability to enjoy it when you get that wrapped up in things.
Yeah, it's not like we saw the Gorn and they were purple triceratopses all of a sudden. Then that would be an issue. I actually like that we didn't see them at all.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Well, I think in that way that helped preserve canon to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we had seen the Gorn, that might have been a step too far, but I think not seeing them a la Silent Enemy or Balance of Terror, I think that works really well.
And when you want to talk about retconning, I think this is where it's actually kind of cool. If you think back to the episode Regeneration of Enterprise, where we have the Borg, but they never really do see the Borg or identify them as the Borg. So it kind of holds true with canon, but we still get the Borg in Enterprise. So kind of the same approach here with, we don't really see the Gorn, so it's okay.
Ferengi, too.
Yes.
All right, so they managed to evacuate people from the ship using those wonderful, fun space tubes that we've been introduced to in modern Trek.
It looks better this time than it did in Discovery, I think.
Yeah.
It had like a holographic floor on Discovery, which really bugged me. I realized that could work. You could just have your floor be a force field, but I would worry you sudden power loss during an evacuation, which I feel like could happen because why else are you evacuating? And then all of a sudden you're sucked into space. So I like that this one had a real floor.
Mm-hmm.
I like these, people are like, well, we never saw it before. Yeah, we never had the technology to make that happen on screen. I like these types of things that highlight, hey, it's 300-400 years down the road. Of course we're going to have things like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not terribly different than things we have now. You get somebody from the shuttle into the space station now, and there's a little airlock, so...
And I think it's a good plot device to show, how vulnerable a ship is when they are using that.
Yes.
Yes.
They didn't just extend the shields. I was expecting them to be like, oh, just extend the shields.
I think the thing is that's something they can't do, in an instant. I think that there's a process for that, so they didn't have time to do that once they noticed the Gorn ship.
So all but 7 of the colonists survived everything.
I think 10 people die in the whole episode. I think 7 crew members from Enterprise and 3 colonists.
Yeah, that makes sense, because in Benga says there were 9 casualties, and then we lose the one other with the doors.
Yes.
Oh, Kyle's boyfriend.
Oh, yeah. They had a moment at the very beginning of the episode.
I said, there's a cute guy. They focused on him for just a little bit too long. He's not going to make it out of this episode. And sure enough.
I totally missed that little bit of extra attention. Poor Kyle.
Yeah, they have a moment. It was cute.
Right, so we have the attack. Very interesting that as strong as La'an has been, here we see the thing that can break her. Or at least she froze up, and you don't expect that.
Yeah, her PTSD was triggered.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to show, because no matter how strong somebody is, there's going to be something in their life that is not. And certainly in her case, I think I said this before about her. I don't know how she's functioning at all, period, to have been the only survivor of your entire family and ship being killed and eaten. Not just killed and eaten. But yeah, so Una gets hurt. She doesn't heal.
Well, I mean, there's that, and then there's a convenient plot device to kind of sideline Una in this episode.
Yeah.
Again, like just this way we sideline her in the premiere, and to give La'an a chance to shine, they find another way, and just 3 episodes later, to sideline Una.
I hadn't even thought of that way.
I hadn't thought of that, yeah.
It's like they can't both be equals in an episode.
Well, my thought on this is that even though she's Illyrian, she's not invincible in any way. She's not like Wolverine. She can't just automatically heal anything.
Thank you. That is why I wrote healing factor on the outline.
We don't know everything about her genetic, manipulation.
Right. So my thought is, this is more of a situation where she knows that there's limited supplies and other people are hurt, and she's just going to she says she's fine because she doesn't want to take away attention from someone else.
Yeah. If anything, she just, it shows just kind of how humble and, truly, gracious to the rest of her crew, you before me. So, that's pretty, it's a good, it's a good character trope for her, to show that she's not selfish,
Mm-hmm. And you want to see that in your command staff, because that means that they care. Captain's always supposed to be the last off the ship. I just thought that was kind of funny because the issue of her quick immunity was such an important part. And then, okay, well, I can get through a cold or a light disease, but if you puncture me with a piece of shrapnel, that I can't do anything about that, which actually does make sense.
Yeah, what's your immune system going to do with that?
Yeah.
It'll prevent you from getting an infection from that shrapnel, but...
There you go.
It can't, tie your blood vessels back together.
Or eject the shrapnel from your body, or... Yeah, I didn't think too much. I didn't think too much about that. I was, more so, like I was saying, a little bit like, oh, there we go. That's why she's not on the bridge, and she's kind of sidelined.
Well, it's going to give a chance for other characters to shine. I think we are not going to end up with the Una, Pike, and somebody else show, like we had kind of the Picard, Data, and Worf show for some parts of TNG, or the entirety of the original series being the trinity of Kirk and Spock and McCoy. So
don't get me started on that. The Data movies.
Oh, yeah.
Una being sidelined with an injury, though, is, again, reminiscent of the DS9 episode Starship Down, in which Sisko has a head injury and is taken out pretty quickly, and you just see a few scenes where Kira's taking care of him.
Mm-hmm.
Or Picard being sidelined in Disaster.
Yeah, stuck with those kids.
Yeah.
Which is worse, life-threatening injury or being stuck in an elevator with 3 children? I'm not sure, honestly.
I'll take the injury.
Yeah, I think I might take the injury.
What amount of time? I would need more information there. I don't know. Because those were terribly small children. If it were babies, I'd be like, no, I can't deal with this. I don't know how to do that. Of course, then they need help, so then I would feel more bad.
I'd question how I ended up in an elevator with 3 babies in the first place.
That is a good question. We digress. Anyway, then we start getting into what La'an, this background that we have for La'an that we're learning more about. There's no question, even going into this episode, how La'an feels about the Gorn. And she really does toe a line between what would be recognizing a threat. This is an enemy. This is somebody who we're not going to be able to communicate with, like she talks about with the Federation likes to communicate. And being completely prejudiced and saying that all Gorn are terrible. Now, they are just monsters, she says. They're just plain evil. How do we feel about that? Do you think that's presenting something that's a prejudice? Whether it's, certainly if your family's eaten by some other species, I can understand you hating them no matter what. I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just seems a little...
It definitely feels like a prejudice. At the same time, it's hard to say when at this point the Federation doesn't have enough have any experience with the Gorn except when they kill and eat them. So how can they say they're anything more than monsters that eat them when that's all they've ever seen?
True.
I feel like, yes, it technically is a prejudice. You're right. And at the same time, so far, the Federation and her own experience at this point in time, the only thing it is a threat. It's kind of like, early Borg, okay, we learn really quickly there's no negotiating with the Borg. So I feel like, yes, it's prejudice, but at the same time, maybe, I hate to use the word, at that point, the precaution is warranted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying that she doesn't have good reason. I just...
Well, yeah, and you're right. Even she kind of oversteps her bounds quite a few times with Pike, he's kind of giving her that look like, you are in a gray area and you got about 5 seconds to get back in there, get back in line. And she finally wraps up what she's saying with a sir. But yeah, you could even tell he was like, "You're trying me. You better land this plane and get back in line."
Yeah. I did appreciate, though, because she makes it, she gives it a deeper meaning when she says, the Gorn trigger a primitive ancient terror in warm-blooded species. And immediately you can think about, like, did you guys ever see Walking with Dinosaurs? It was like one of those big CG early 2000s. It was like a Discovery Channel special. They were really excited. Okay.
I've seen things like that. I don't think I've seen that specific one.
Yeah, because there were a lot that they spun off of it. But there's scenes where you're like, it's set up so that it's like, for those of you that haven't seen it, it's set up so that it's like watching a nature documentary, but it's dinosaurs. So it's supposed to be like a real-time kind of thing. Actually, Avery Brooks did the voiceover for it, for the U.S. version, I believe.
Oh, now I want to see it.
Oh, yeah. There's discussion in that when they're getting toward the end of the Cretaceous period, and there's all these little mammals running around, and they're all very scared of the big dinosaurs that can eat them, and that's just what it made me think of. But then Carl Sagan wrote a book in, I want to say late 70s, early 80s, but don't quote me on the timing, but it's called The Demon Haunted World. And one of the things he discusses in that is whether or not mammalian species and humanity in particular have this ingrained fear of reptiles. And if it does go back to the whole thing, this like ancestral memory of being a little mammal amongst velociraptors or whatever. And I just wanted to bring that up because anytime you can bring up Carl Sagan, awesome. But also, if you have not read that, again, anytime you can read Carl Sagan, do it. So, but I did like that they brought it into something more deeper than just thought process.
Yeah, like there's some sort of like ingrained instinct there that if you think about it, reptiles, you've got your alligators, you've got snakes, they can be pretty dangerous predators, So I don't think we're too far off with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've never had like any particular aversion to reptiles over any other animals. I mean, as a kid, I was scared of like all animals, basically. But it would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, I wish it had been more recently that I read Demon Haunted World because I can't remember exactly how the context in which he's discussing it, but it's an interesting idea. Maybe that excuses some of the prejudice, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see some of that, in the mind meld. You see what the situation was, and after that part of the scene, you're like, can you blame her?
Those memories.
Oh boy, yeah.
That was gut-wrenching to watch. Did you guys get the impression that they were the last two left?
Yes.
I did, yeah.
Okay. Because I was, it kind of feels that way, but is it, What did you think of her brother's code book?
Well, I was a little, don't want to use the word confused, but like, how long were they interacting with the Gorn that they had a chance to figure that out and kind of write a book, that explains it? I think it was really cool. I liked it. But I was like, oh, did this go on over days, weeks, months? I don't know, And so how long were they, antagonized and captured by the Gorn? I almost said Borg. So yeah, I think it's a cool thing, but it kind of evoked a few more questions.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that he had managed to figure out the entire process of how it worked. That seems unlikely.
Mm-hmm. Down to letters.
Yeah,
like he was translating it to the letter. Go ahead.
Like full on Morse code.
Yeah.
Because why do they use the same letters?
That's true.
I mean, her brother must have been like a full-on Uhura level prodigy with linguistics.
Right.
Maybe he was. We'll give him that. It made sense to me because, like, when he showed, like, there was one of the pages that was like something was run and something, I don't remember what the other words were, And I could understand that because it's like, okay, you can get that from context, but to be able to break it down to letters, I mean, it seemed a little much, like you say.
Yeah. But they needed it for the plot, so it worked.
Yeah. The question of how long they were there. Do we know how many people were on her ship?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I feel like it had to be more than just her family.
Yeah.
And they were in a hatchery, which says to me that these are small Gorn who maybe don't know how to kill as quickly. And if you have enough humans, maybe you can overpower them, at least for a little while.
Or it's even more terrifying because they're going to bite you and it's going to, like, not kill you instantly and you're going to bleed out. It's pretty, it's.
Oh, yeah.
The whole idea of a planet hatchery is just kind of, I mean, it was pretty gross and terrifying, and that was the point,
Mm-hmm. I want to know more about this. As gruesome as it sounds, I want to know how many people were on that ship. I want to know how long it took them to all get killed. I want to know how it was that she was the only one left. I mean, Starfleet showed up. We know that. But, was she left to tell the tale, or just happened to be she was the only one left and they just hadn't gotten to her yet?
I'm not sure, but so we had the conversation in the first episode where she said that they had sent her out as the sacrifice.
That's right. And
launched her into space in that ship.
Okay, so she was the one left to tell what happened.
Yeah, so I'm thinking they did, like, when they captured her and her brother, they killed her brother and sent her into space.
I still need to know why, but we'll get there.
That's good because that answers the question why nobody saw the Gorn then. So that except her,
and also maybe why she didn't have the notebook with her. Because if they'd had that would have been in the Starfleet database by then.
Right.
True.
So we're back to mind melds not being really terribly important, which is fine. We know that the whole mind melds being equated to something terribly intimate like sex is because they needed the plot line for the AIDS awareness thing on Paramount, so fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting about Spock's memories coming in, though.
Well, I'm going to, retcon that in my head to her being, augment, or being, like, she's, a little bit more, she's smarter, she's, probably tapping into more of her brain power, so to speak, or ability. And it was kind of like maybe a little bit of a feedback on that mind meld where she was able to see into his head just a little bit.
I think we've had things like this before. So we've had things where where the mind meld at least partially works two ways. Because we have Picard mind melding with Sarek to transfer some of his control to Sarek, but then he also got a lot of Sarek's memories, as we know, because he mind melded with Spock to give them to him. So I think mind melds are a two-way street.
Oh, no doubt there.
I agree. There's been, to your point, mind melds just kind of happen all the time now, but they always sort of have. I mean, at least whenever a Vulcan's around, there's going to be a mind meld. I totally think what we saw, I had no problem with it, so it made it, and I like that she picked up that, that kind of keeping with that memorial idea and whatnot, that he was, he lost a sister, like she lost a brother, and maybe she only saw that because what she was remembering, Spock was witnessing, and that was drudging up his own memories, and so she saw that.
Yeah, I wasn't bothered by it in concept, except for the fact that Pike told him to be back in half an hour, and I'm pretty sure it was more than half an hour, but, whatever. That's okay.
What I thought was a little funny was after the mind meld, okay, now we know about the Morse code, and we know what to do. And the first thing she says to Spock was, "I'm surprised you agreed to this." And I'm like, well, you're the first officer. You outrank Spock. Spock is not second in command. He has no choice but to go with your plan. So I think that was a little bit, either A, it could be a potential slip up on the writers, or B, maybe just in theory he agreed. Not only did he knew he had to do it, but he agreed with the course of action as a good idea.
Metaphor for balance of power in working relationships. And
yeah,
actually, if you keep to the mind meld as an intimate thing, that is a metaphor for sexual harassment as well, but I don't think we need to go there.
Yeah, I don't think someone can order you to do a mind meld.
Oh, no, but it's just, that's why I say the metaphor part.
Yeah.
Talking about Michael showing up in the memories, Lon says, okay, she starts to say Starfleet records don't show, and then she's cut off by Spock. Okay. Don't show what? Don't show that he has a sister. Don't show that she was on Discovery. Don't show that she's dead. Well, they wouldn't show that she's dead. No, they would, because they told everybody Discovery blew up.
Blew up, yeah.
How much of Discovery did they take out of the records?
I mean, Burnham was the mutineer. You can't just... Everyone knows that. You can't just make her disappear.
Right.
My thought is they probably covered up the spore drive.
Oh, absolutely.
And they certainly hid the fact that it went into the future. But they still... The fact that the USS Discovery was a ship that fought in the Klingon War and then was commanded by Pike, that is in the record and that's available.
It has to be because they're wearing the pins for it, so...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, there were, over 100 crew members on that ship, and something had to be told to their families,
Yeah.
Yeah, so they said that they were all killed in action.
So what is it that the Starfleet records don't show?
The Starfleet records don't show the spore drive, and they don't show the time travel.
Right, but what was Lon talking about then?
The fact that Michael was Spock's sister may not be a record either.
That's true, because there's not the name connection. Okay.
Right.
I can go with that. Starfleet records don't show that you have a sister.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like it.
Yes, Michael Burnham is certainly listed in Starfleet records, but they probably removed as many details as they could, and the fact that she was Sarek's adopted daughter is probably one of those details they were able to remove.
I wonder... Okay, just randomly thought of this, so it's not fully formed, but... I wonder how, given how media is, and you'd think would be, how many people know what her voice sounds like? I'm sure there were, because she gave that speech. I'm sure there was discussion about things that she had done while she was, tried and convicted of mutiny. Everybody knew who she was. I wonder if La'an just recognized her voice in Spock's head, and that's why she was confused.
I mean, she is, genetically enhanced, right? So she would have a good memory. So I could buy into that. I seemed like the idea better that, there's no record of her being connected to Spock, and that evoked the question.
Well, those are not mutually exclusive. In fact, that would reinforce, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Lon says she's a direct descendant of Khan, right? She's not a direct descendant of Khan's sibling. She's not a direct descendant of Khan's cousin. She says it's a direct line. Right? I think? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before or after the genetic alteration? And if it's after, how much came through?
Was Khan a regular human who was then genetically altered? I don't think that's how that worked. I assume that Khan was altered as an embryo.
Oh,
hence the Khan project that we see in Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that named after him or given his name?
And that's how it ties into Adam.
We have not seen genetic... Oh, no. Okay, we have. Because if we go to DS9, Bashir was modified as a child, not as a... Okay, so it's possible.
In terms of the timeline that we're supposed to be looking at, if you take into account the events of Picard Season 2 and a little bit of retconning that's been done with the timeline in order to keep everything future-facing for us, in order to keep this our future, potentially, so you have the idea of the Khan project first being proposed in 1996, which is a retcon, and in 2024, when, Adam Soong loses all of his research thanks to Corey, all he's left with is that proposal. And we do know the eugenics wars aren't coming now for, probably a few decades from where we are in 2024. So I would go to think that Khan is going to be created as an embryo or as a genetic, some sort of creation, not taking a human, because otherwise that human would have had to already known who that was back in 1996 to have a name. So I think it's something that's to be created after 2024.
That's definitely possible.
So he would start off with being genetically altered, and any offspring he had would carry that on.
Okay, so yeah, I had been thinking this whole time that he was genetically altered as an embryo, but now I'm thinking it's possible he was altered as an adult, and maybe she's not genetically engineered, because if she were, there would be all sorts of rules against that. So she probably wouldn't have been allowed to join Starfleet if she was descended from augmented genes.
Right.
She's not genetically engineered. She's just descended from somebody who was.
But those genetically augmented genes would presumably have some of them at least would have continued on.
Or if they took a pass for like, okay, the as Christos is saying, is the genetic modification was done, and this was not, she had no control over it. But then again, the same could be said about those Illyrians to some extent. But
yeah,
right. If we look at the way they explain it in Ghosts of Illyria, I would think that they would view someone descended from someone with genetic engineering as the same situation, because they would still have those genetically modified genes in them. So now I'm wondering if perhaps, like you were saying, it was done to him as an adult, and she's descended from his progeny from before he was modified.
I have no idea. And we haven't seen her do anything. She's talked about how she was teased. She was called an augment. There is some discussion about her genetics when they're in the almost warp core breach.
And what about when Chapel wants to give her the hypo spray to augment her for the away team, and she demonstrates a very, very, very high threshold for pain?
She does, but in that instance, I think it was more that she doesn't want to lose control of herself in any way.
That was how I read that. Not that it couldn't be both.
It could be both. Yeah, that's true.
Well, maybe we just have more episodes ahead of us.
Please. Please.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Hopefully some of these things will be explained for us, but that's what makes being Trek nerds fun.
I think we're going to get a lot more. I think probably not this season. I think, because I'm still on board with Alex Perry's theory from the first episode, I think we're going to dive into the eugenics wars next season.
Yeah, I think what we saw there in Picard was like not by accident. I think there's definitely some tie-in coming, and I'm here for it. So.
Well, it was something that popped in my head, and just see where it takes us. Listeners, what do you think? Tell us on the Twitter, in the Facebook group, and all of that. I'm probably forgetting something really obvious, and they'll be like, "Hey, she said X, Y, and Z." All right. Anything else we want to say about La'an and then the memories and all of that?
No, I think we kind of got that done pretty good.
Okay, let's talk Uhura and Hemmer then.
All right, I'm going to talk about uniforms and ranks again for a second.
Yay! Thad's uniform and rank corner.
When the first scene after the damage to the ship happens, Uhura yells out for Lieutenant Hemmer. She calls him Lieutenant Hemmer a couple times there.
Okay.
He's wearing 2 wide strips on his cuffs, which should be a commander. It's the same rank that Uno wears. Not even lieutenant commander, but full commander. And I feel like that's a mistake in the dialogue, because whereas with Spock and La'an, I think it's a mistake in the costume. I think in Hemmer's case, it's a mistake in the dialogue, because he's chief engineer, so he's more likely to be a commander than a lieutenant.
And this is why we should be wearing pips and not having little gold rings around our wrists, because pips are a lot easier to understand.
Unless you're eating corn. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that at all. Good eye.
So I think Uhura and Hemmer, they set up this little bit of a dynamic between them in episode 2, and I'm loving it. I feel like they're becoming fast friends, whether he realizes it or not, and he's developed it. Especially like, I don't like teamwork. So what does she say to him? Like, get on board or something like that?
Learn to like it, yeah.
Learn to like it, yeah. Yeah, I think he's developing a respect for her because she is very disciplined, and I think if anything, he's prejudged her and put her in a box, and he's learning quickly that was a mistake. But yeah,
I adored that bit at the beginning. What's the thing? It's an air filter. Ugh, nobody reads. Cadets don't read. Oh, here, I'll explain it all to you. And you know what this means? It's an effing air filter.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's definitely like your grumpy old man. I just think of like the grumpy old men movies a lot when I watch him. And I love it. I love it because everyone can be a little bit of a curmudgeon sometime.
No, I can't. Yes, I love Hemmer. I think he's fantastic, and yes, I have always enjoyed the trope of the grumpy, curmudgeonly old person who develops a begrudging relationship with the younger, happy, positive person. And that is clearly what's happening here, and it's wonderful, and I want to see more of it.
Well, I mean, you just kind of made me think about something. I mean, is this supposed to be a metaphor for like boomers and, the younger generation? I don't know what we're calling them now, not millennials, but Gen Z.
Z's, yeah.
Yeah. Is that supposed to be a little bit of a little read on today's society? I mean, possibly. And
Star Trek representing today's society? Never.
Oh.
All I would say to that is it's probably more Gen X to Z.
Yeah.
Not because boomers are not really represented in this too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also boomers wouldn't be Hemmer's age would be more Gen X than boomer. Boomers would be Starfleet boomers of the age of Starfleet would either be high-ranking flag officers or retired at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, not worrying about age, let's talk about the idea that a person doesn't die until your purpose is achieved. I love that.
Well, I mean, I just like that even in this circumstance we can like invoke some philosophy, in this time of crisis. You can go a couple of ways with that. I love the idea of it. I think it's awesome, and I think it kind of for those who have not figured out their place or what makes them happy or what they're meant to do. I think maybe it inspires them to try to find that. But then on the other hand, terrible accidents happen all the time, and people die well before they should. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think people have a purpose.
I mean, is that not like kind of a religious kind of what we call? I just call it a philosophy, but it's almost more of a religious point of view,
Yeah,
it does. It has that feeling to it. The idea that God calls back the ones, only the good die young, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I am not very religious myself. I don't personally find that people have much of a purpose. We do things, we live, we accomplish things, we don't accomplish things. None of that stuff are the things we were born to do. They are the things that we happen to do in our lives on this world, or universe in this case. I don't think that the idea that no one dies before their purpose just feels wrong, because death is also just something that happens. I don't think anyone is destined to die at a certain time or anything like that. It's just we're born, we live, we die, death happens. But whether I die today or I die when I'm 90, I don't think that either one is when I was destined to die or when, I have fulfilled my purpose, so now I will die. It's more, that's just when I died. But, philosophers have talked about this sort of thing for millennia, and will continue to do so without reaching a consensus. So,
well, that's why we're talking about it here.
I think, if anything, it just kind of gives us a kind of a look under the hood, a little bit more of Hemmer, and maybe what the Enar philosophy is, and, kind of, gives us a little bit more of, some of his backstory, and maybe, what motivates him.
yeah.
Yeah. As a recovering Catholic, yeah. I'm seeing both sides of this. I'm also seeing a third option. Third option is older Starfleet officer needs the cadet to put her damn helmet on. So you know what? We're not going to die right now because you haven't served your purpose yet. And if he's wrong, what's she going to do? But I'm terrible in that way. So we had, there was some discussion and it popped into my head too. There's shades of disaster in here. We already talked about disaster. Yeah. There's shades of, what was another one I thought that we were talking about before we started recording? I can't remember.
Arsenal of Freedom.
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
You know, with the disaster one, too, that hit me mid-episode, long before they blew the airlock or that was going to become a thing, because I was already getting disaster just based on all the different scenarios going on all over the ship. And then we go and, like, truly make it obvious and we blow the airlock.
Yeah, I definitely thought of Crusher and LaForge in that scene.
Yeah, because where were their EV suits? You know, that would have been a little better.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, like there wasn't any in that shuttle bay or that cargo bay. And then we talked about Arsenal of Freedom, where, you know, the switching of the roles, you know, in Arsenal of Freedom, Crusher and Picard fall down that big pit, and Crusher is seriously injured, and Picard has to kind of be the doctor, and she has to kind of guide him through that, whereas Hemmer is seriously injured and can't use his hand, and so Uhura has to be the engineer, with Hemmer guiding her. So two big TNG callbacks. Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked how this was an issue that Hemmer could have had having nothing to do with the fact that he's blind.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not about the blindness, it's about the loss of control in one form or another. And for him, it's the loss of the use of his hands, so. Because he couldn't get to sickbay. And speaking of sickbay, we're practicing some archaeological medicine here. That was just...
I got good McCoy vibes from that, you know.
I could not come up with a good analogy for this, but I do recognize that it is like somebody in our time suggesting that we do something like it would have been done in the 1700s. Okay, and that it's so there is a logic to that, but at the same time, sewing a wound has been used for a lot more than just, you know, the last few hundred years. So I feel like that's something that even if you're using, I guess if you have a dermal regenerator, sewing a wound would be barbaric. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he say in Star Trek 4 where she's getting dialysis? She's like, it's the goddamn Middle Ages.
What is this? The Dark Ages, I believe. Yes. So, very close.
Colorful metaphors by me.
And talk about the Middle Ages being the Dark Ages another time, because it's not. But speaking of historical connections, though, Thad, you picked up on something that I didn't, and I love it.
All right. So, and I looked this up, and apparently the alternative definition exists, so it's not technically wrong. But
okay.
When Mbenga is doing the status report, he says that the medical supplies have been decimated, so they aren't able to provide any treatment. And decimate, originally, by the actual way the word is written, means to decrease by 1/10. In fact, that's how the prefix deci. That's what deci means. It's also used as a metric prefix. A decimeter is 1/10 of a meter, or 10 centimeters. And technically speaking, if the supplies were decimated, that means they still have 90% of the supplies and they should be fine. But if you look it up in the dictionary, it does also mean a substantial portion has been removed, because language does everything and literally means figuratively now, and nothing can actually mean anything. So,
I mean, didn't they add irregardless to the dictionary just because people were using it, even though they were using it wrongly?
Yes, and they did the same thing with normalcy. But it doesn't change the fact that my grumpy old curmudgeon of a self will be annoyed at it.
I'm with you. I'll give you an alternative explanation. They lost more of the supplies because while the 90% of the supplies were beating the tents to death, they got hurt too.
Yes, because that is another. If we do literally, it was a way to punish Roman. It was Roman
Soldiers.
Military units, right? Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
They would murder basically 10% of them as a punishment.
Yep, you line them up in their legion and have them count to 10, and 1 through 9 beat number 10 to death. Yeah, usually Christos, because the look on your face, yeah. That was usually used to root out mutineers. So
Okay.
there was a logic behind it. It wasn't just complete and utter cruelty.
I guess I missed that episode of History with the Szilagys.
I need to add that to the list. I haven't done one on decimation. I got a fun one coming up this week, though. Listeners, this is one you might have to put your hands over the ears of the little ones if needed. One that's coming up that's going to be dropping the same day as this one. Yeah. I got to add decimation.
So, sickbay, I had a question. You know, Enterprise is supposed to be in this, the, what do we call it? Not the Black Dwarf, but
Brown Dwarf.
Brown Dwarf, sorry. And they get the black hole. Anyways, so systems are down, shields are down, they've powered down, they have no sickbay. What about the daughter and the transporter?
I hadn't even thought about that.
Gods. I hadn't either.
Maybe the transporter has its own separate battery.
If it had its own separate everything, maybe we wouldn't have had that problem in the first place back in I don't know. I think it was forgotten.
Una said that they were going to find a way to make it independent.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that was just done.
Also, this could come down to they may have written this episode before they wrote that episode.
True. And in fact, there's almost a logic to that because having it air right after the episode about the light does cause questions.
Yeah, and we talked about how they may have moved things around so that this episode aired for Memorial Day weekend. So that may very well be that when they wrote this episode, they didn't even know about that plot line.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, my headcanon, I'm going with Chrissie's, is that when they made it separate, it now has its own separate battery backup.
All right.
I imagine sickbay has a backup generator. Might not run the replicators and the thermal regenerators, but keeps the lights on.
Well, I hope the whole ship has a backup generator to keep the lights on. I get what you're saying.
So that they don't have to start making splints like Pulaski and Contagion. And donating blood. That was a weird moment. Like, donating blood must be that uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah, they're talking about how they don't have any plasma, and I'm like, why not?
Just get some.
No, wasn't it that their stores were wiped out in one of the attacks, and they, with the systems down, they couldn't make more.
Right, but they have hundreds of crew members on board with plasma that they can donate.
Right.
Or just straight up blood. Like, it appeared. Did you get I got the impression that Mbenga just had the blood.
Or the blood transfusion, yeah. I mean, they were literally linked up. It was going from him to her.
Right, but like they're talking about how they're completely out of plasma, and I'm thinking, yeah, they must normally just replicate it, but yeah, because plasma is the one thing that hospitals never run out of in our world, because you can donate an absurd amount of plasma without causing a problem. Like, if you need plasma, you just say, hey, we need plasma, and they'll just take pints of it out of people. It's fine.
Well, if the systems are messed up, maybe they don't have the setup.
Right, they may not have the entire infrastructure there to do that, but I'm just thinking, like, that is actually one way where maybe the Stone Knives and Bearskins does it better, because, yeah, you run out of blood all the time. Well, not all the time. Better not be all the time. You can run out of blood at a hospital. You will pretty much never run out of plasma. They always have enough plasma from donations, and if they don't, they can just grab some from able-bodied people who happen to be there. It's not plasma is, for anyone who doesn't know, you can donate. I don't know the numbers. I just know that if you're donating plasma, you can donate a lot of it. And it does not cause any medical issue to you if you are in good health. So, yeah.
Yeah, because don't they take it out and then give you the blood back when they're doing that? That was a fun little moment with the thing about archaeological medicine. And yeah, it does bring us some questions about power in sickbay. I hadn't even thought about that with the transporter. So we're in the brown dwarf. And this is where we get the Wrath of Khan / submarine movie vibes that people have been talking about, and I agree. What do you guys think about the worry of smushing the hull, but it didn't quite happen, and everything that goes with that?
Well, I think we all knew that the Enterprise was not going to get crushed.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. I think we know that going in, obviously. I think they set up, like Pike's faith that it would hold, They do show the stakes are high. They evacuate decks 20 and below or whatever. And, of course, we lose a crew member in the process. So there's kind of consequences to that whole move of going deeper. And we see them go to that, almost to that critical mass, but it does result in a Gorn ship actually being crushed. So we do see the possibility is there. It happened to the Gorn. I guess their ships just aren't built quite as well. So I was kind of okay with it. I mean, what really kind of surprised me was by the final, not to jump ahead, but when we get that shot of the Enterprise at the end, it's pretty beat up. It's visibly on fire, and it looks like in some areas, and its hull is scraped, and it looks like it took a beating. So, it almost reminded me a little bit of the damage we see Voyager take in Year of Hell.
I think part of this is Pike knows his future. So he knows that if he puts the ship in a situation where it might survive, it will survive, because he knows what's going to happen to him in the future.
That's a thought.
It is a thought, because it's almost a dangerous thought too, because you could really start to take on a really reckless lifestyle, knowing that, hey, I know I make it, so I'm going to go do this.
Oh yeah, no, this could definitely result in some serious risks, but I think that's part of it, because when Pike very strongly says she'll hold together, it'll be fine. Like, I think part of the reason he's able to say that is he knows that he survives this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's that whole, if you keep your confidence up and you protect, you can, you believe a miracle is going to happen, you can kind of make it happen. I don't know, it's a little bit of, kind of also slightly faith-based type attitude.
Well, there's proven psychology to that. If you go into something thinking you're going to die, then you're going to create a situation that makes you die. If you don't, you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, but in this case, we're talking about the structural integrity of metal. So, it's either going to fail or it's not going to fail. I think that's where I was applying that one.
Well, even with the structural integrity of metal, so the ship is built to a specific tolerance such that it will survive this amount of stress. By definition, that means it will also survive more stress. You just don't necessarily know how much more stress.
Yeah. And if you go with, if Scotty were there, he'd tell you, yes, there's the margin of error is strong, and engineers are always conservative on paper. I think that comes up in the relics, So yes, I think you're kind of taking a little bit of leap there that, that margin of error is big enough that the Enterprise will survive. Yeah.
Because, if the tolerance is this amount of pressure, they're not going to take the metal and be like, okay, well, if it breaks at this amount of pressure +1, then it's fine. They're going to test it to see if it holds to the amount of pressure they need, but they're not going to, and then they're going to build everything to that tolerance, but that means will go farther. You just don't know how much until it breaks. It's the same with a weight limit on something. If you have an elevator that holds 2,000 pounds, it will probably hold 2,500 pounds. I mean, I wouldn't test that theory, but it probably would.
Yeah. I'd test 2001. That seems safer. Yeah, and then they get out of the whole thing by dropping the little decoy, which I thought was pretty slick.
I did like the dropping the torpedo. I like that. I thought that was pretty. That was pretty cool. I just wish they would have shown it. I think that I was like, why didn't we see that?
I think that was so. Then we got the same experience that they did on the bridge. They didn't see it.
Right. I just think the episode overall shows us so many visually spectacular things, and I wouldn't have mind seeing that. I get maybe it was like, hey, that's one more special effects shot that we had to squeeze into this thing for an episode that's already really heavy on it, but I like what you said there. They didn't see it blow up. All they're going to have is, Spock looking through the whatever you want to call the viewer there and that was also very reminiscent of like being on a submarine.
A lot like Balance of Terror.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing. Spock was always reporting the damage to the ship and whatnot, just from that viewer.
And here's where he learned it. All right. Anything else we want to discuss with this before we get into final thoughts?
We see a crew member wearing a male scant in this episode.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that was in my thoughts for later, but okay. I love it.
I actually, and I will admit, I was corrected on this. I tweeted out about this on Twitter, actually just today, saying this is the first time since 1994 that we've seen a male scant, but that's not true. We did actually see a background extra on the Enterprise in Discovery in 2019. So this is not the first time we've seen one, but it is the first time we've seen one on Strange New Worlds, and I very much approve of equal representation in scants.
Yes, and trousers.
Yeah, I am of the love of scants. I can tell you a really fun scant story here real fast.
Please.
I was on the Star Trek cruise a couple months ago, and we were a couple of my buddies, James and Kelvin from the UK. We dressed up in matching TNG scants that night, and I was blue
and you looked awesome.
Thank you. And I actually had matching TNG underwear on that were also science blue. And we were in the TNG bar at like 2 a.m. And I will say I was pretty drunk. And somebody drags Sonequa Martin Green in, who's getting pizza late at night. And she comes over and she was so impressed with our scant. And I might have flashed her my underwear.
Amazing.
What she thought was fun. But I'm like, the next morning, I'm like, I think I showed Sonequa Martin Green my underwear. But I didn't get arrested and everything's okay. So
you didn't show her your not underwear.
Yeah, true. Yes. And they were, they covered quite a bit. So it wasn't just like they were like, but scants are a thing. So I'm glad that we're seeing some of that in Trek again. The crewman's name is Zaniga, crewman Zaniga. So the fact that he has a name, maybe we'll see him again.
This may be the very first... I think this might be the first male scant wearer on Star Trek with a name.
I would probably say that's accurate.
Oh, that for sure.
Also, I will have a tailored scant for the cruise next year.
Very, very good.
You will never see me in a scant because I don't wear dresses.
That's fair.
I didn't realize... I didn't make the connection because I heard Zuniga, and my first thought was... Daphne Zuniga, the actress from Spaceballs.
Spaceball.
So it's funny. I had actually been, I had been joking with someone else on Twitter that we hadn't seen Kyle from the waist down in the first 3 episodes, And
That's true.
I was saying, well, then maybe he's wearing a scant. We were saying, yes, Kyle is wearing a scant. And then this episode, we see Kyle wearing pants. I'm like, oh, he's not wearing a scant. But then we still get a scant this episode, and it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people wear different things
Loving
on
it.
different days. It's all good. I mean, we've seen that. That's established with number one, because we've seen her in all the different types.
Yeah, the other thing that I thought was a very good line from this episode was when Uhura asked Hemmer why he was in Starfleet at all, because the Eon are pacifists. And Hemmer responds with, pacifism is not passivity. It is an active protection of all living things in the universe. And I thought that was a great line.
I love that.
Except the Gorn.
Pacifism does not negate self-defense. You know, when I was putting together the outline, I had made a note to include that, and then it fell out of my head, obviously, because it wasn't in the outline. So thank you for bringing that up.
And a line that made me very uncomfortable and also laugh out loud was the scene in sickbay when Chapel says to number one that septic shock is going to set in soon. I hear it's like giving birth out of your mouth. And number one responds with, who says that? And she says, I do. Which made me laugh, but also, that is a horrific thought. Like giving birth out of your,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of starting to get several episodes in a little bit of a clear cut that Chapel has no bedside manner.
She had the great line last week, I think it was, where she says, you don't need to thank me, I know I'm good at my job, which I loved.
Yes. That was fantastic.
Yeah. I'm enjoying Chapel. You know, the funny thing, kind of looking at the show, normally by now I have a favorite character, and I actually am enjoying every character, which I haven't really done since TNG.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that says something about the show. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love DS9. I love Voyager. I love them all. But there's usually one or two people who I would prefer not to have, or just I don't, going to skip over their episode or whatever. But TNG is one of those ones. And I think that's one of the reasons TNG worked so well and had such a big following is you liked everybody. And then, so I haven't really seen that since up until Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, Strange New Worlds is definitely an ensemble cast, which we touched on earlier. But it's nice to see because it's the first time we've seen an ensemble cast since really, Voyager, I guess. Because we talked about how Enterprise was focused very much on Archer, T'Pol, and Trip. Mm-hmm. But those shows still gave us episodes about other characters, and that's something we haven't seen with the newer serialized Star Trek because they just aren't able to. They're telling their story, so they got to show us the main characters doing their thing, which makes sense. But this is a serialized show, and we are getting an ensemble cast, and I love all of these characters. Also, if I can be forgiven for saying this, they are also every single one of them, incredibly attractive.
You can be forgiven for saying that. There's no apology needed for that.
I mean, I think it would have been worse to say that they're all unattractive. So I'm digging it. My hope too is, as we go into as we're talking like Picard season 3, is that our character, as they're bringing back the entire cast, that they'll all kind of have equally something good to do in these last 10 episodes, and the fact that we know that, it's no secret that I'm like, Dr. Crusher is my favorite character in all of Star Trek. And, she's confirmed that she's already done ADR for the first 6 episodes, tells me Gates McFadden is in the majority, if not all of the episodes in season 3. And
LeVar Burton just tweeted about doing ADR recently, too.
He did. Yeah, he took a picture of himself outside the studio.
My biggest gripe about the TNG movies, especially, the last 3, is it became very, 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 very data focused, and to the detriment of the other supporting characters. So I'm hoping we see that a little bit, fixed in this last season.
TNG movies, unfortunately, Data and Picard really were the only ones with character development throughout those movies.
Right. But to bring it back to Strange New Worlds, I just everyone's getting their fair share of screen time, and we're learning about everybody, and I'm loving it.
Yes. Agreed. Do we have any canon connections we haven't already discussst?
We've talked about almost everything.
All right. Anything else you guys had on your list that we haven't hit?
I liked La'an's line where she said, "The enemy doesn't care about my feelings, so I don't waste my time having any." I thought that was a pretty badass line, even if it wasn't entirely accurate.
That was...
It's like one of those deals where you're like, you're right, but that's really not how you should approach life,
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we've talked this one every which way and sideways. So, final thoughts.
My final thought, as always, is I want more Strange New Worlds. This is amazing. Give me more. I am loving this. I want this show to continue forever.
All right. Christos?
I'm going to kind of echo that. I mean, 4 episodes in, and it's like, wow, it is our strongest debut season for any Star Trek show. Question mark, to be determined. Love that we already have season 2 well into production. And I'm glad that we figured out that at some point, maybe, we're going to see some tie-ins to season 2 of Picard, just kind of, with the eugenics and whatnot. So something I'm hoping they'll do. But loving the show, and hope that that opinion does not change.
Yeah, I don't see that changing. I'm in the same place there. It's wonderful, and it's just keep going wonderfully. All right. Well, Christos, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion today. Where can listeners find you online? And do you have any current or upcoming work you would like to mention?
Sure. People can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Greek Geek SD. That's Greek Geek SD. And I'm currently working on developing a podcast here for BQN. So kind of trying to decide on what the format of that podcast is going to be. And it's kind of exciting. One thing I do think it's going to be kind of akin to is, I mentioned my friends and I, they get together on Thursday nights, and then we end up talking incessantly about things. And I kind of want to have that flavor of the way we talk to each other when, we're just geeking out about something after it's over and what we thought about it. So I'm somehow trying to capture that.
I like that. All right. Well, Thad, where can people find you when you are not calculating the amount of pressure before the Enterprise hull starts to breach?
The best place to find me is on Twitter at Tyrannicus. That's Tyranicus. And you can also find me on the podcast that I do with my friend Carl called License to Spiel. That's license spelled with a C like the British do, about the James Bond films. Chrissie, where can people find you when you're not donating plasma?
I've tried to donate plasma once, and I passed out, so I did not try to do it again. College. Donating plasma. It's the only time I've ever fainted, either. It's funny. I don't mind. I can deal with emergencies if somebody's bleeding in front of me. I can go into emergency mode. But for myself, I'm just, no. Anyway, there's information that nobody knew. So, in addition to here on Infinite Diversity, you can find me on History with the Szilagys here on BQN, and that is a twice-weekly history short podcast that I do with my fellow historian partner Jason. I'm also happy to chat about our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook, and I'm also on Twitter at The Goddess Livia, that's TheGoddessLivia, where I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics.
Don't forget all of our other great shows on BQN podcasts like Galaxy Class, All Good Things, History with the Szilagys, and if you enjoy the other Star franchise, don't forget to listen to Mickey's Marvels as they cover Kenobi, which just started this week.
Previously on BQN. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
Maybe Chekhov was an ensign? while the first season was happening, and then he got promoted, and so he got screen time.
Well, look at you making it all work.
Headcanon.
All right.
He was there on the ship. Maybe he was in the bathroom whenever the camera was on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mickey's Marvels, a Disney podcast.
He believes in his own purpose. That's basically what it is. He's not a cult leader because he drew a card from a Cracker Jack box. He believed in the god of Amit, and he believed that he was the guy. He was the one, and Amit was the right one to follow. Listen to me, and follow my ways.
Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
All very interesting and very, very Star Trek-y to kind of just hit you on the head with a little bit. But at the same time, you would think a advanced society that supposedly has eliminated these things would not so easily fall into that trap of, just another form of bigotry and racism. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I get for the purpose of the episode, just hit him on the head that Federation against all this stuff. Eugenics was bad. We don't want to do it again, so we're just going to completely toss it out the window. Can't do it. Sorry, bye.
You will find these and more of your favorite podcasts on BQN.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the great show art. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well.
If you want to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at BQN Podcasts, or our show specifically at IDIC Podcast. You can also talk about any and all of the BQN podcasts in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the next episode of Strange New Worlds, Spock Amok. Until then, peace and long life. Frankly, sir, we can clean their chronometers.